Then and now, we got the crown when we rock the town. Hot sound keep us breaking ground while we chillin' lounge. 3 generations, black nerd soldiers, podcast snipers trying to pop culture. Allegedly, haters try to talk, but a pedigree in rare form.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Then and Out podcast. I am your illustrious co-host, Captain Diesel, and I am joined with the two legends, the two old goats, Lelouch V and Professor E, King of the Comics, Ethan Murphy. How are y'all doing, my brethren, my hermanos?
I'm good, man. I'm good. A little tired. Long week, but a good week. Dealing with the kiddies, the prodigies, the proteges, as it were. I'm good, man. I'm good.
You full-time professor now. That's crazy.
Full-time professor. A teacher, I guess. Teacher, not a college. A teacher.
Yeah, we'll still call it Professor E.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm okay. Crazy week. So crazy you wouldn't believe it. I barely do, but
that's a nice ominous lead in. I like that.
Right. Today, guys, we are coming on for a very interesting episode. It's slightly different than the norm, but not really at the same time. We came on to kind of discuss this. We're kind of treating this like a POI. I don't know if this is like officially a POI or what we're going to call this video, but it's a conversational piece. We are going to be discussing the progeny or like legacies when it comes to characters. Obviously, throughout media, for lack of a better term, well, that is the term in media, there are a lot of characters that are iconic. You know, they stand out to people love them, and they live on for generations, forever and ever. Amen. But then, below them, there are the characters that carry on their legacies. In a lot of occasions, they are the children of said characters. In other occasions, they're just the next people to take on the mantle of said character. But there's a very interesting thing there to discuss in regards to how you successfully create said character, how you give them mantle, and you make them unique and also interesting apart from their former. So that being said, I wanted to kind of bring that up to you guys and kind of ask your opinion on what you guys really feel about characters that are usually legacy characters of others, and how maybe give me like an example, a good and bad example of how that's done as far as bringing them into the fold, and making them make their impact. And we can start with Lelouch. We don't start with Lelouch too often.
Yeah. So a good example of a legacy character, of course, is like Terry McGinnis. He's of course, the both metaphorical and we'll find out by the end of the series, literal son of Bruce Wayne.
Spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
That's crazy, man. You spoiling shit.
I mean, that spoiler came out almost 20 years ago. So I mean, if it's a spoiler for you at this point, I'm sorry. But I mean, seeing how he handled the mantle of Batman is one of the few times that I've seen someone else take over that I truly enjoy. I guess like and I wouldn't call it necessarily a bad example, but an example that didn't go as well as like, you know, when Dick Grayson tried to take over the mantle for a point in time.
Interesting. You didn't think it was done well?
It was okay.
Which time though?
When he got blasted through time.
Yeah, when we thought Batman was dead, but yeah, he got sent back to the past, and you know, Dick. Well, there was like the
Wars of Robins.
The Scott Williams. That's Scott Williams. Snyder. That was Snyder. Right.
Yeah.
Scott Snyder.
Like, I mean, thematically, I thought I was more intrigued by the path towards selecting who the Batman was going to be, more than the actual execution of, like, you know, him being Batman. I didn't hate it, but it didn't feel, I don't know, authentic, for lack of a better word. I probably should have a little bit more cohesion behind that, but for Terry McGinnis, I just feel that, you know, with him being able to adapt to a different world of Batman and learn from the source of it, it felt like a just significantly smoother handoff than that one. I mean, I guess another more recent example of a not so great transition is in the second Black Panther movie with, you know, Letitia Wright taking over the mantle as Black Panther. not one that I necessarily hated, but it didn't feel like her in that role wasn't as beloved as Chad Boseman in it, and I feel like part of it is in how the MCU handled that transition. I think it could have gone different ways and could have had an overall better reception.
I don't know that's so. There's a couple of things. First off, what I'll say about Terry McGinnis, I think why that works so well is because it is a new era. It's not like you have Terry McGinnis fighting crime in Gotham City in 1985 or what have you, with the same era that we're seeing the original Bruce Wayne and the Bruce Timm era. Because Terry McGinnis came about because directly of the Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, McDuffie era. They making a cartoon show first in the comics and everything else. If they tried putting Terry McGinnis in this suit in the Bruce Timm, the original Batman they made series, it wouldn't have. I don't think it would have worked. I don't think there could have been a smooth handoff. He was a new hero for a new era, so it seemed like a smoother transition overall. And I think one thing that kind of held back Dick Grayson for some folks is because he's trying to be Batman. He literally puts on the same exact suit trying to be Batman, and he's not that character. He is Nightwing, or he was the OG Robin. So sometimes having to have a legacy character, it almost works better if they're a new character coming into new shoes, as opposed to I've been around forever as this entity. Now I'm gonna try to transition into this other entity by officially watching like someone in a different, like a sheep in a wolf's clothing, or vice versa. I think that's also similar with Shuri. We just saw her in the previous film before as a completely different personality, completely different character. And now, due to a series of bizarre and horrible, unfortunate events, her brother is gone in real life in every way possible. And so now she has to is thrust into this position, but we already know her from another role before. It almost would have worked better if you had a brand new person take over the role of the Panther, as opposed to having to replace it with something already established in a different role. So for mine, actually, what I'm gonna do for my two choices, I'm gonna stick into, because I already know what Dev's gonna be. So I'm gonna let Dev have his. But I'm gonna say for mine, I'm gonna say Robin. And again, I'm gonna say what did work was, of course, Tim Drake as Robin. And what didn't work originally, say what you want to say, Jason Todd didn't work when he first came out as Robin. And the reason was that Jason Todd didn't work is because they were too hard in the paint, trying to make him so opposite of Dick Grayson that he was just unlikable. He was unlikable to Batman himself. He was unlikable to the fans. I get it. He was a brand new upstart kind of a kid. He gets rough and tumble, but there's got to be a point where you actually want to see the two heroes work together. And of course, Jason Todd does not play well with others. You still don't, but it's kind of his whole MO. But it came to Tim Drake. Tim Drake had to be earned. He had to earn his spot. He pretty much had to. Of course, he figured out who Batman was, and then Dick Grayson himself gave him his blessing, so to speak. I think that's the big thing when it comes to making heroes or making characters in legacy, is actually having the mantle passed on willingly by those who came before you. And of course, no offense to Jason, but Dick, of course, didn't pass it on to him. Batman just found him, and it was like an alley or something in the comics originally, something like that.
He was still in his car. He was still in the wheel.
Still in the wheels. Yeah. Which is kind of, don't get me wrong, it is a dope idea. This kid is jacking Batman's ride, but it's not the same idea as far as it's getting the blessing from what that came before you. It's not earned, so to speak. So I'm using that one, the simple one with that route with Robin as either Tim Drake and Jason Todd.
I agree to a certain extent. I feel like you almost have to make them, well, there's certain occasions where you don't have to, but in most occasions you have to make them drastically different. I think in the case of Jason Todd, he was just unlikable as a character initially. Right. The issue was with him.
You can be different. You can be definitely different, but don't be with the point where people just don't like you at all. That's not going to work. Right.
Because again, that's very because we can talk about the similarities between Letitia Wright's Black Panther as well as the Battle of the Robins. And to be fair, with the Battle of the Robins, part of the comics and the dialogue was how he wasn't Batman, and that was like a dialogue him and Damian were having because he wasn't acting like Batman in some occasions with some interactions with like Gordon and other characters. And they were like, "You don't seem right." He's like, "I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not him."
Yeah.
And then even more so with that, when you had Jason walking around like shooting people in the face, so that was a whole different thing. But I digress. And with Letitia Wright's version, it was more so like her not being T'Challa. I think, at least from what I remember, that was like part of her development of like her being the Black Panther, being like the new leader, or trying to take on that role without being him, and like trying to figure out how she was going to find her own place and all that. But I think the issue, I think with the Chadwick thing, with the character is when a character passes away after a good reception, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like if Hugh Jackman passed away today, there's no good reception you'll have from anyone ever in that role again. No matter what you do, they could be fucking the best performance of all time, but because you was that guy and they liked him and then he passed away, and he didn't get a send off before he passed away. It is what it is. Because again, my perfect example with that would be again what everybody was probably waiting for me to say, Miles Morales, where he literally like in a different occasion put on the exact same suit, and then made his own suit work, and then even more confusingly is operating at the same time as the other Spider-Man. So like both of them are around with the same exact name to everybody else, but except we as fans know his actual name. That's the only difference we have there. But it works because he is so different in regards to him as what he values, I guess. Because they pretty much are very similar in regards to the type of humor they have, how their fighting styles, or at least up until recently, where now he's a vampire and has an electro sword, and he has a lot of, he's like a superpower up at this point. I don't know, but he is like broken at this point. But for the most part, they're very similar in how they operate. The difference there is the values and then what people see in them. I think people identify with these characters very differently because of how they look. And I think that's another cool thing you can do there in regards to a character taking on a mantle and them being different. I don't think it always has to be they're extremely different personality-wise. It could be the cultural background. It could be how they got to that point. Like, these two people can both be the same type of person, but they took different routes to get there. One person maybe took a longer route through trauma, and the other person went straight there. They were just there from the beginning. I think it's just the journey that we need to see these characters go on. And I think in the way that it's not done right is when it doesn't feel like that character has a journey to become that character. Personally, for me, I'm not gonna hold you. Captain Falcon, I don't like him as Cap. Doesn't feel right to me. Like, I still just see him as Falcon to me. Seeing him as Captain America just picking up that shield, I didn't see him take any. Maybe we will in this new movie. Maybe that's what this whole new movie is in regards to him like earning that mantle more. But in the show, it just felt like, okay, I'm better to hold the mantle, but he didn't take any kind of like side journey to get into that role. He took a side journey that he never. It felt like development for Falcon and not development for Captain America. And so that's my biggest issue. I'm
split on that because I mean, obviously we saw in the films, through what 11, 12 movies that he's in, we saw the journey he was on. Oftentimes he was right there with Captain America. So it's I know what you mean. It may have seemed like he wasn't a right fit for him as a Captain America, yes, or a shield bearer, but you can't deny that he didn't earn his stripes. I mean, he's been through all the same stuff that Cap did in a lot of ways. So I don't know how you could make it that much more fitting. And I damn sure don't think Bucky should have gotten it. Bucky is a war criminal. The idea of him being called Captain America seems like wow. It's just wow to me.
He's capable. He's very capable. Yeah, as far as fighting stuff goes.
It's not about him not being capable. So I guess in a way, I don't even know who could have
honestly
be more.
I'd rather it be Bucky. I feel like there'd be more to actually do there with the character than, because essentially what they did, they were like, well, you came back from the military. Black people don't really have shit. You see that black people don't really have shit, so we're making you Captain America now. Like
But America didn't decide for him to be there. It was Steve that just said, "Here, I'm giving this to you." Let
me ask you this then: what like developmental arc did he go on from his introduction up until he became Falcon that you feel like made him like prepared for that?
So I mean, if you go back to all the way to the Captain America Winter Soldier, right? He was essentially a retired vet for the most part. He wasn't in action anymore. He lost his friend. Friend in line of duty, and then because he wanted to join up because he wanted to help out Cap, he actually got back out there. And through the course of the movies, we saw him actually taking the mantle, taking more roles, being more of a leader himself, and facing all kinds of incredible hordes. Where all he has is a pair of collapsible wings. He's fighting guys that can really throw moons at each other and do all kinds of magic, and he has wings. And he's still stuck with it the entire time. Also, he was a leader of two people out in the field. He was helping people learn and grow, and since what, Avengers 2, where he was talking to other people as well, it wasn't just Cap. So I feel like he earned his stripes by being on the front lines and actually helping people to learn to find themselves. He helped Ant-Man a few times in multiple movies too. He was always backing up Steve. It's kind of like it's kind of the same thing as like having Robin take up the mantle to be Batman, or having Terry McGinnis do it, or so not Terry McGinnis, having Robin do it. Having someone that the original trained from the start. It's like, who would be better for my replacement than the person who actually was around me the whole time?
He had a great supporting role, but I don't think he led anybody per se. In most instances we saw him in, he was like more comedic relief, and in the person he was around the most with Bucky, it was like a buddy cop dynamic.
Well, then why would Bucky be a better fit in your opinion?
I just think you could do more there in regards to him originally being American, going through the whole roundabout route of being actively against America, him having the closest relationship with Captain America. I just think there's more you could do there. Does that make him worthy of the mantle? I think he could become worthy. I think because again, we talked about before how you can be the same person or not be the same person. At least for me, in my point of view, it's about the journey to getting to that point. So, because in the comics, he was Cap for a long time in the comics, and that was a similar thing that happened there. Like, he took the journey into becoming Captain America from the Winter Soldier. Because at least in my perspective, the way I see him in that regard is, you're the Winter Soldier, you're the Soviet assassin and mercenary. How do you build your way up into leadership? How do you build your way up into getting that respect to become and earn that mantle?
Then we need to
Bucky,
see that
it's
journey.
like he started here,
and
then like kind of moved up a little bit to here. Sure. I didn't think he like had. And the struggles he had, the struggles felt like struggles that he had for him. Because when you look at the show, most of the issues he had was like him not coming back from war, but coming back to his hometown and his family and people not seeing him as like the superhero. It's like, hey, you're still a black man in America. Yeah. You're still a veteran at the end of the day. You go to apply for a loan. Sorry, we can't give you that loan because you're black.
Right. Sorry,
it is what it is. Even though he's a vet still. Again,
save the world. Literally save the world.
Right. And I feel like that was compelling, but when you're thinking about Captain America, you're talking about that leadership aspect, that trust, that loyalty.
But Bucky has none of that. Bucky literally
doesn't. But I think you have more. I think it'd be more interesting of a story for him to garner.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing. I'm with you. But the thing is, if today is Monday, the Shield has to go to somebody Tuesday. We don't have time to say, okay, we'll give it to you in December of 25. It's like the Shield has to go to somebody today. Who's more worthy of it? It's going to be Falcon.
I feel like it should have went to anybody today. That's my problem with it. Like, I passed that shit on way too soon. That shit's
but Captain America died. There's no spoiler alert.
I don't think you need a Captain America. Like, we saw the Avengers get led by like Storm led the Avengers at one point. I think is she leading them right now in the comics? I know she's on the team.
No, yeah.
Yeah, Black Panthers led them. I don't think you need a Captain America. So I thought you, especially
so now we're
all the
getting
characters
off topic,
you have
though,
now.
because we're saying if we're passing. The thing is, if we're saying that it has to go to somebody else, you're saying it should go to Bucky. Fair. Let's say it goes to Bucky, but you don't have time. You know what? I think here's the thing. I think what would have been the best case scenario, is if it did actually show the journey of Bucky earning it. Have it do that way. Yes, I agree. Have him go through a whole bunch of trials. Have him earn it. Have him earn the shield. But we didn't have that time. They didn't go that route. They went, look, somebody's got to get that. Somebody has to have it right now. Who's the best option? The best option.
They want Cap in there so bad. I don't know why, but hey, I want him there so bad.
At that point, you just call it Team America. You get a bunch of people that collectively form the new Captain America. You Captain Planet it.
Better yet, you know what you could have did? Y'all have Patriot sitting there. You have Isaiah Bradley and like his grandson Patriot, and he's going to be. I'm assuming if they're smart, they'll make him a Young Avenger. I know he's like they are lingering with all the other young heroes that they may do the Young Avengers at some point. Make him Captain America. He has a literal
Captain America.
Yeah,
some of that literally that we have again for the audience watching the MCU, they have no idea who this kid is. They have no idea who Isaiah Bradley is. They'd say take this random dude that we have no idea who this person is and make him Captain America. Also. In the last movie, in Endgame, when Steve's like, I had to get this to somebody, you want Steve to walk around into the middle of what part it was and say, here, take this shield, stranger, who I have no idea who you are. Goodbye. Oh, by the way, good luck with no super soldier serum. Figuring out how to throw this shield and catch it without killing yourself. It's like you got to have. There has to be some logistics based off what we're dealing with. With the MCU itself, the best candidate. There's not much you could do. Same thing with Shuri. You could have done something else, like you said. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Let's say you try to go a different route and give it to somebody else other than Shuri. Fine. Just see you try to replace it and say, oh yeah, by the way, this is all on this was T'Challa. You get upset fans like crazy. I mean, there's no what do you How do
I
you
think it
do
makes more sense for Patriot from that aspect when they went down that route in the actual show, showing the dark side of Captain America with like Bradley being the first Captain America and how they operated. What I thought was going to happen was like they were going to show, okay, we're going to correct the mistakes of America in regards of how they exploited black people to create Cap by passing the shield on down to the next person it should go down to, and then from there you got time to build up Patriot in the same manner you built up Cap, because Cap was in Cap from, well, he was Cap from the jump, but in regards to like how everyone in the world knew him, they built that up from like the Avengers on forward.
There.
So I mean, if they did give it to Isaiah Bradley,
Not Bradley, his grandson.
Wait, so
Yeah,
I thought you said
Bradley,
he
is the grandson.
Bradley existed, but I'm saying his grandson was around there. In the comics,
no,
his
I remember
grandson
like
is
they
Patriot and all
showed
that
him like talking in the streets of Sam Wilson and Bucky on the way to see Isaiah Bradley. But you're saying I thought you said that you wanted somebody to hold it and then he would get it eventually after they build him up as a character. So you're saying that immediately just pass it to Patriot?
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
stuff. Just give him the shield. I'm just saying, just give him the shield. Let him develop as that character.
But like by that time, like he hadn't even been introduced. Like
that's what I'm
at the
saying.
end of
That's what I'm
Endgame,
saying.
he didn't exist yet in the MCU,
Didn't
right?
exist.
He existed in that show. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're gonna go through the whole route of like who's going to get because essentially that's what the entire show of like Cap, Falcon, and the Winter Soldier. That entire show is like who is getting the shield, who's the mantle getting passed to.
Yeah.
To me, it would have felt a little bit better. Just okay, let's not give it to any of these two who's fighting over it for the entire show. Let's right these wrongs that America did in creating Cap in the first place, and just give it to this kid. And then
but they would have had to write a different show. They'd had to write a different show. Because
yeah, literally. That's my thing.
I should just say that could have worked. It could have worked if we see Bucky and essentially see that Bucky and Sam, neither of them are truly right for different reasons. But you gotta make it clear the grandson's there along the whole time. You guys see the grandson doing some stuff to make sure that he's actually trying to be a leader, trying to actually help his community or whatever it might take. Right. You got to show that from the jump. And even then, still don't give him the shield. Don't give it to him yet, but pretty much just so that he's on the route to get it, to inherit it someday, pretty soon.
That's just the base case scenario if they actually want to, build up new characters and not just keep bringing back old people.
Sure.
Like, hey, we got all these young Avengers here. I wonder what we should do with these guys. It'd be nice if they were on a team, right? Or they did something and didn't just sit here while we ran back the same 50-year-old people to come back and play different roles.
RDJ.
That's just RDJ, Hemsworth, whoever. Like, we got a bunch of young actors here and young characters we could build
Hugh
up.
Jackman too.
But anyway, that's beside because we kind of went.
Sticking with the lane of lineage there, though. I mean, he does have a movie upcoming. Isn't that dropping in February? What would have to happen in that movie for you to accept him as Captain America?
I think it would just have to be more aspects into seeing him actually develop as a leader first and foremost. Because to me, when I think Cap, the first thing is him being a leader of not just the Avengers, but the world essentially. So we just need to see him more in that role, which I think we're going to, from what I've heard of from the trailer, from what I've heard of from watching different outlets cover what the plot is for the movie and seeing how the trailer went. It seems like it's going to be more of uncovering the unsavoriness of America itself, kind of similar to Winter Soldier, because you have the president who's literally doing some wild shit to be the rebel.
Comes out on Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, I think it's right around my birthday. Right around my birthday too. Or I think a week before. But yeah, that'd be my thing. At least for me, you just have to show him as being part of a leader. If you're gonna make him Captain America, I need to see him lead and inspire. I can't just see him just have the shield and do cool shit.
Well, no. So here's the thing. I think that's part of what the show did do that some too. He originally had the shield and he didn't really want to use it. Didn't want to have it at the beginning of the show. Didn't play being Captain America, and then it does kind of show him. I mean, in a weird way, the show's kind of rough at the end, especially. But it did try to show him standing up to what we thought was a corruption or the mistreatment of obviously for the black soldiers before they came before him and other things. It did show him kind of standing up to that kind of corruption. It may not have been, again, there was the writer's strike, I think it was, and everything else because of COVID, and they had to kind of change it.
Yeah, they still got a whole plot line with the show.
Yeah, it kind of got messed up, so it's kind of hard to really. So, but it did show him trying to, even at the end of the show, he's wearing that horrible outfit and had that horrible speech. That's kind of his coming of age moment as far as look, I'm ready to. Now I'm ready to accept the mantle. At the beginning of the show, he wasn't ready to accept it either. That kind of was meant to show his journey. So it's hard to say. These are hard. These are harder scenarios. By the way, a lot of these scenarios are rejected. People didn't like Shuri being there. A lot of folks didn't like Sam Wilson as Cap. A lot of folks didn't like Jason Todd. So it is a very hard thing to do as far as having to find the right hair. Oh yeah, Ironheart.
So to bring it all full circle, I think the common thing we have there that we're all kind of agreeing on here is like just giving it away right away and not going through a journey to obtain that mantle.
It's terrible. Yeah, you got to earn it.
Granted, I mean, with Terry, it could be a situation with Terry where he just got it early and kind of earned it, because initially he just stole the suit and was just Batman, and then
But he still even did. It was a trial. It wasn't like he wasn't Batman because we were in the suit. He became Batman after the what he went through and everything. And then once Batman officially approved of him, that's when he essentially became Batman. It's the same thing with Miles Morales. Miles Morales wasn't was a Spider-Man because it had. So it's we're all on the same page as far as like what we believe.
So the next thing I guess we can get into, because we kind of went into like, I guess, mantles being passed down to people that aren't the children. How are you guys feeling about like actual children of these characters being there and being the person to carry on the legacy? Now they don't have to be like the exact same character on some Captain America type of thing, where you just have the same name and the same skill set. But in regards to you having significance and being a part of that bloodline, how do you guys feel like that's kind of formulating going forward?
I mean, I feel like it could be the same way that nepotism is in Hollywood or whatnot. It's kind of like it's not necessarily a damning detriment, but again, once you have your foot massively in the door, you damn well better keep it there, better earn its spot. So, for example, you're talking about bloodlines, with Blade's daughter, or have a Laura, X-23, whatever. These are characters who, because of their parents before them, were kind of poised to be the next superhero, or even with the Flash, all the different Flashes essentially. That's fine. You're there, but you got to do something to kind of keep your spot. You can't just, because I have because of my last name, I'm guaranteed to be a fan fave.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it kind of varies. So like Damian Wayne is an easy one. I mean, he overall pretty well received. Very different from his Robin counterparts. I feel like even people appreciated how rocky the relationship between him and Bruce was to a degree, because it's just, again, such a difference in views. Like, he's more close to like akin to a Punisher mindset, while Bruce is Bruce. So I mean, seeing how that played out and how Damian adjusted to that was interesting. Another one that's pretty iconic and could have been more, of course, is Gohan to Goku. I mean, the transition into the Cell games and seeing Gohan really come into his own, I mean, I believe was pretty well received, but I guess when the fandom spoke out about it, they still wanted Goku to be, center of Dragon Ball universe.
So I thought it was Toriyama that thought, yeah, this isn't gonna work with Gohan.
No, Toriyama planned for Z was supposed to be over with. Like, he planned for Gohan to be the main dude at the end of the show. It was supposed to end with Cell. What happened was,
he planned for it to be over at Cell. Yeah, the end there.
Yeah, they ended the show and there was like an outcry of people not wanting Gohan, or they just. I'm not gonna say they didn't want Gohan to be around, because people still wanted Gohan and people liked Gohan in that moment. But I think people were just sad that Goku was actually gone.
Right, yeah, they still wanted Goku around. Yeah, I got you. Because what I've also seen too in the reports and from interviews is that Toriyama, sorry, I didn't mean to try things, but that Toriyama saw the nature of Gohan. Gohan is essentially a person who doesn't like fighting. Goku is a person who lives to fight. Gohan's a person who only fights if he has to. So it's harder to have a superhero that's kind of like always reluctantly throwing a punch, as opposed to somebody that's like eagerly looking out, seeking out battle, so to speak.
I don't think Gohan was reluctant to fight. Like, he didn't.
That's his basis.
That's like in his characters. Like, he didn't want to fight. He had to. Fight people. Yeah, when he had to, he was pushed over the edge. He snapped, and then because if you remember like the Cell, like the exact Cell fight where he was like regular Super Saiyan and he was fighting, he was like, I'm fighting you because my dad's here, but I know that.
You're right.
Granted, I'm trying to make sure I don't get like the lines confused from like the abridged version, because Dragon Ball Z abridged had
the parody of it.
Yeah, because honestly, I think they did a better job at explaining it.
It's the same. Yeah, it's pretty much the same idea.
But essentially, it was the whole thing of like, I fought because I've had to my entire life, but I've never wanted to, and I know my dad knows that if I snap, then there's an uncontrollable rage that I can't control, and I'll probably kill you, and like I'll become that thing, but that's not who I am. I don't want to do that. Because they
do a
show
story
him
with
reading
that.
books and dancing with little dragons and having fun year in, year out, and then he just gets abused randomly because he gets put in situations where he has to fight to survive.
Right. I mean, you can do an amazing story with that, but that's not what Toriyama wanted. Toriyama wanted a character that wanted to like seek out.
I don't know about that part because I know he like wrote Z to be the end, and then he was kind of forced to do the Buu Saga.
No, yeah. I mean, obviously that's clear. He don't want to do the Buu Saga, but I mean, it's like the whole basis for Goku is not that he's a Superman. Superman is a person that is also Superman is closer to Gohan than he is to Goku, as far as personality wise. But Goku is someone that's the whole point of him is that he's his flaw, the toxic part about him is that he loves to fight. He can't help himself. He'll throw a Senzu bean to Cell so he can fight him better, so to speak. So I mean, that's kind of it. That's kind of if that's the ethos of your world or your story. It's a character that wants to fight more since Dragon Ball, and you have a new character come in there that's like pretty much like I'm always trying to be a pacifist and study books. It's like that's a massive shift.
And you saw the instance in which like he finally adopted that kind of a mentality in the Buu Saga where he became Mystic Gohan and he was kind of cocky in that fight with Buu, and he pretty much tried to become somebody he wasn't, and then you saw what happened there in regards to how that ended.
Anyway, I'm sorry, Otis. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, that there's a bit of nuance there because I mean, of course, even before then, you had him, out masquerading as Great Saiyaman, trying to still protect people while hiding from his mom that he was still using his powers and not just focusing on school completely, which was really like you call yourself the Great Saiyaman and you're trying to hide that from the one person on the planet that knows what a Saiyan is. Like,
I know. Yeah.
How is that really on?
Yeah.
It's like
goofy.
Yeah.
But he was playing superhero. That's why I'm just like I don't.
He's a kid. He's a kid.
Literally. Oh, my bad. Go ahead. Oh, I keep cutting you off. My bad. Right.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they kind of played around with what Gohan's motivations was, especially in that Buu Saga. It really wasn't the clearest because when he goes to Mystic Gohan, and it's clearly like one of the strongest people to ever come into the show. Like he, instead of just finishing up like how he wanted to do with Cell, he started playing around, being more like his dad. It's like, why did you do that?
Did he play with Buu that? I know he played with Cell, obviously. Did he play with Buu that much? Because it seemed like he didn't get a chance with Buu. Buu kind of
he was like he came back and then he punched him in the gut, and Buu was like panicking, whatever else, and he was like kind of like smirking and talking that shit to him.
He did talk smack.
He didn't let him do anything like Goku did, but because he wasn't like fully focused on ending the fight as soon as possible, then he let him absorb Gotenks essentially.
Right. Yeah. It makes pretty quick. He got the Gotenks. Yeah.
Because he could have ended that fight like in an instant.
No,
was fucking around.
We talk about the Buu Saga and how many false starts. There was there's so many ways to end that so much faster.
But I think that's the crux to like the downfall, at least to the negative reception of that kind of arc to me when it comes to Gohan, is the fact they tried to make him not like him.
Make him when he was
whole arc was like we're gonna make him more like Goku and then put him in Goku's clothes. We're gonna do all that stuff, and then that goes to show like why people still prefer the Super Saiyan 2 Team Gohan version of him at his purest. Because at that version,
I agree.
Kind of to the same point we talked about what I talked about before in regards to like you can get to the same place in regards to Gohan and Goku being like the deadliness factor and their strength level and how they operate. But they take different routes to get there. Goku's like out the womb, like, hey, I want to fight niggas. And then Gohan's like, I mean, I guess if I have to. But then the same day, they get to that same peak.
Right. It's a different philosophy. You can make, like I said before, you can definitely, talking about what Otis was saying with nuance, you can find a way to make it work very, very well. Someone who, as opposed to, I want to fight because I enjoy it, I fight to protect those I care about. You can make a great story with that. There are plenty of soldiers like that, or in my opinion, people that do that kind of thing. I get that entirely. So, yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I want to point out real quick that while we're doing Legacy, I think it counts. You may not want it to, but I think it does count. Is Creed, even though Apollo Creed wasn't exactly the lead in the Rocky movies, he kind of was enough. Next to Rocky, he was it for the most part for the first 4 films. And I think the way that they handled Creed as far as a legacy character was really well done, especially since he's very different from his dad. And y'all know Creed 1 is like one of my favorite movies of all time, and he's very much dealing with abandonment issues and everything else. it plays up the idea that the one that came before him failed him, and you kind of force him to become what he is on his own, so to speak, as opposed to someone passing the mantle off to you. This is someone that's almost rejecting the mantle angrily, and then ultimately has to come into his own because of it. It's another way it's done.
I'll let Elle speak on that first before I give my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. That I mean, it is a spiritual like successor there. I mean, even with Rocky being his mentor through the first two movies. I mean, I never really viewed it as that, but I can see exactly what you mean. I mean, because it is a continuation of the franchise. But I guess this is my personal preference there. But if we are viewing it as that, I do think it was a good handoff. I mean, I do enjoy those three movies. I think they're well-made films. I think that they do address some, like again, like I mean, the major plot point of the three films is him dealing with his issues with his father, and then how to be a good father for his daughter by the time the third one comes around. So I mean, they find ways to continue that through that format, but they're so different, and I feel like they intentionally made it different enough so it doesn't feel like the older Rocky movies to me. I mean, at least to me. I could be kind of off there. What do you think, Charles?
Well, I think
honestly, I feel like he's more of a successful, like spiritual successor to Rocky than he is to Apollo. Honestly, and when you look at like their relationships with like their significant others, with their children, and how they're raising their children, and how they operate in the world, they're very much so more similar to one another than to him and his father. Which I think, at least from what I gathered from watching it, was like part of the message there as far as their relationship, how they're so similar, and he's almost like he's literally like a son to him by the end of felt by the end of the first movie, honestly.
Right.
Because again, they were like, we saw the issues that Rocky had with raising his kids. We saw it with that he was going through with him and his daughter. We saw the difficulties in the relationships. We saw how they trained and how they had their fall from grace and coming back and all that good stuff. I think that one is an interesting case to where sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes when it comes to a spiritual successor, it's about the aura. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I know that's an abstract concept to some, but somebody like feeling like they fit the shoes isn't always in the story. Sometimes it's like, can we see you being that person? Because if you have Hercules, right, you have this like, and not nothing like any other particular version, but like the mythological identity of like a Hercules, like a Herculean man, where he's just like above and beyond, he's strong, he has it all. And then you put somebody who is a string bean with no confidence in that role. No matter what you do, at the end of the day, most people just aren't going to see him as that. You have to reinvent who the Herculean man is to make it fit that mold of that individual. Right. And with Creed, Adonis Creed felt like he just fit that mold a lot easier. Like he just slotted into there a lot easier than anyone else you could have put in there, because he was so similar to Rocky in approach and in somewhat personality to an extent as well. Because again, too, going back to our conversations with other characters, like when I'm looking at like a Terry McGinnis, he seemed like he fit a lot more similarly to Bruce than anyone else you could have had. And they had different personality traits in regards to how one was more brooding and standoffish, and the other one was more quick-witted and more into having relationships with people. At the end of the day, Buddy exuded that certain level of aura. We just saw him as Batman at a certain point. Because we give them, either you can say we give them room to become that, or maybe give them room to reinvent that. But sometimes some people just, or some characters just, they gotta have that aura.
I feel you. And then,
and I think that's part of the issue with the Cap stuff too. I just don't like neither of those guys feel like Captain America.
I feel you. I feel like Sam doesn't have that kind of like put up by his bootstraps, kind of like a underdog. I'm trying to fight for the. I feel you. He doesn't have that. I got you. At the same time, Miles Morales, even though he's not genetically related to any of the Peter Parkers, Miles Morales, especially in the movies, more so in the comic books, has very much has that aura as far as like, I'm a nerd just trying to get by, that was destined, unbeknownst to me, unintentionally, I have to deal with this. And with Creed, even though Creed is not related to Rocky at all, the idea of I'm trying to make a name for myself. I'm trying to do something for myself, and I'm hitting wall after wall after wall after wall, getting frustrated. It's very similar to akin to Rocky. So yeah, I think that's another secret ingredient too, is having them, like you said, that aura, that kind of that je ne sais quoi, that thing you can't quite, put your.
And I think that's mostly the issue too with like the Letitia Wright Black Panther. Like, I think if you would have like somehow found a way to bring back Michael B. Jordan, his character in Killmonger back and put him as a Panther, it would not have made any sense and probably the worst decision to go narratively. But he had that aura. He has that aura. I think people would have accepted him more because he just fits that mold and has the aura of that character. You can build him up with the leadership aspect later, but he just, like, from the moment, even in that movie, like when you saw him show up on screen, I don't know if y'all's theater reacted in the same way mine did, but like everybody was like losing their shit. They're like, "Oh my god, he's here!" Like, I think that's the kind of aura you gotta have with a character.
But narratively, because he was very much the antithesis of everything that T'Challa stood for, as opposed to his actual Michael B. Jordan charisma. Because he didn't quite have, again, he could have where he earns it, the same way you'd have, Isaiah Bradley's grandson earn it. I give you that. I give you that. He could, but it's narratively you kind of pitch yourself into a hole.
I mean, I feel like, fending off Wakanda from essentially a mermaid attack with that could have been a nice hurdle for him to overcome to kind of earn that mantle from us, like, coming there to truly protect Wakanda.
Sure. But he was already did it. He's already a corpse at that point.
Right. And saying that, that's in no way saying it's indicative of like skills of an actor or the level of greatness in the plot or narrative. Because like I said before, I think bringing him back to life and doing all that stuff is pretty bad. If people are mad about the RDJ thing now, they should be equally as mad about that thing back then, because it's the same shit. But in the same way that RDJ was brought back, like, bro just has aura, bro. RDJ just got aura. Like, when you see him do stuff, people are like in awe at him doing stuff and his gesturing and how he presents himself. Because Letitia Wright, I gotta see more of her work, but I'd argue that she's a better actor than Michael B. Jordan from what I've seen her in and how.
I think she's a great actor. There's no doubt about that.
We're not crushing aura, bro. You don't got the like. And I think with her, I think they tried to go with the whole mode of like rebuilding and remapping who the Black Panther was in her. Like she had to rebuild that mold. Again, it just didn't seem like it hit as hard as bringing back the dude with all the aura and all the charisma.
Yeah, it's hard. Again, it's very, very hard to do. And even with like y'all know, my favorite Robin is actually Tim Drake. At the same time, Tim Drake and Dick Grayson, Tim Drake is nowhere near as charismatic or as charming as Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson's like the most, literally ranked as the most charming, charismatic dude in the DC universe, right? There are literally just all the fan drawings of his butt is overwhelming. So I mean, it is what it is. But at the same time, he's able to somehow embody the idea of a learning, aspiring sidekick when he was Robin back in the day. It works somehow. It still works. Creed and Rocky. Creed is very much. He's a bit more extroverted. He's a few more chips on his shoulder. He's highly educated and capable. And Rocky was a guy that could, I think, he didn't have even a middle school education. There's some different things in their personalities, but overall, it's like you said before, it's that same kind of like the ethos. It's all kind of in there somehow. It works. I can't really describe it.
People will overlook flaws for the aura. I've noticed that, whether that be in sports, whether that be in media. If the characters just exudes a certain level of aura and they just seem like they fit, anything else people will not give a damn about. Like, you can point out the flaws in it, but they'll be like, why are you pointing out the minute flaws when
it is,
or just seems like he just fits there.
Yeah,
like he just should be that it guy.
It happens, man. It happens.
It's interesting. Even the way that human brain and how people operate is really interesting to me in the way that goes. Well, sometimes people will choose to point out minute flaws, and that'll be a big thing with certain people. But if you get that right, dude, like if people point out the fact that Hugh Jackman is 6'4" versus Wolverine being like 5'4", like
he's short.
It's a big part of the character and a big part of his like little man syndrome and why he's so aggressive. But people like, he got the aura, bro. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Bro, just fit it.
It works. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. It's a seem really, really off topic. I gotta say it real quick because a student of mine, as I said, insanely crazy. But a student of mine said that I look like Idris Elba. I was like, what? But the thing is, I don't see it at all. But the idea is, in reality, right? In the real Idris Elba, the real one, women, lots of dudes go crazy for this guy, right? And I'm not knocking him at all, but it's like that he somehow has that it. He has that charisma. He has that charm. It's just what there is by that guy. It works for people. There's certain people out there that just, I mean, Denzel, you know, there's certain people that it just, something about them oozes that kind of it, and it works really well. The aura that you're talking about.
Acting is interesting because if you get into a certain point as an actor, you get into the Denzel, Sam Jackson, Will area where it's like, your aura is so strong, just be you, bro. Like, just be you, bro.
They are. They're not even
just be
anymore.
you,
They're
bro.
just being themselves on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
Just to say,
Denzel Equalizer.
Which isn't, those aren't bad though. Equalizers aren't bad movies. I
don't know. I feel like was he as charismatic? Because I feel like Equalizer is like the most different from himself because he was so cold and reserved.
Because he was older too. The whole idea was he was older. I mean, I still think Denzel when he was back in the day when he was, you know, out Malcolm X or something. He was a pup.
No, I mean, just getting overall back to the topic. I mean,
right.
As when it comes to literally everything that we've ever covered in POI, it really comes down to nuance. It's about making your character who is transitioning into this newer role for them interesting enough. Give them a struggle that makes it feel unique to the character, but also put them in situations that make them familiar to what the original character embodied and show how they essentially make the same decisions but in a new way. And don't try to, like, you know, completely reinvent the wheel and make them so polar opposite where they're not even familiar to the older character, but don't try to, you know, fit them into a mold, especially because, you know, usually when people try to it's like Kobe and Jordan, right? I mean, Kobe is an excellent player, but he'll never be as beloved as Jordan because he tried to mimic his style. I mean,
it depends on the generation. If you ask, if you come to LA, they're gonna say Kobe over.
Buddy is.
But
I think you go to LA and say fuck off. I think you go outside anywhere and be like,
they don't even know who Jordan is in LA. Trust me. But I know where you're coming from. You're coming from. I think one thing we have to admit ultimately too. Is just that I really do strongly feel like the benchmark for it in a lot of ways is Miles Morales in Into the Spider-Verse, at least in the most recent 15-20 years. Because I know it's not like bloodlines. I know bloodlines they very much they actually are genetically related. There's no relation between Miles Morales and Peter Parker, but it is very much the stories. They're so akin, the journeys that go on. It works so well. It's like, I can definitely see the similarities without it being a carbon copy. And it works really well. Terry McGinnis did really well too with him because he lost his father in the pilot, and that's how he got into it. As far as similar to Batman or Bruce Wayne, those kind of stories, like you said, Otis, having the journeys have similar hallmarks without being a carbon copy, I think really matters too.
Yeah, to Otis's point, I think the main thing is having a core set of values and them not different from those core set of values. How they uphold those core set of values can differ in approach, but they can't abstain from that. Like Miles Morales and Spider-Man, we don't kill in order to save lives. That's like, or even with Batman, like no kill. Like we do not sacrifice lives to save other lives. That is our core, tried and true testament of me as a character. If you can follow that, but approach that in your own way, maybe you beat somebody up more harshly than somebody else. Maybe you maim somebody in a certain way, because that's why Jason Todd is still even attached to the family, and he's more loved now because he's not as much of an asshole. But saving people in your own way, but keeping true to that true, tried and true testament of, at least for them, no kill. And you can point to whatever that is for other characters, but there's always a core set of fundamental things that make somebody who they are. And if you want to have somebody carry on the mantle, they have to abide by those core set of rules, but then approach them in their own way.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I got. I think we kind of hit the nail on the head at this point when it comes to this. Jumped through all kinds of hoops to get there and had some interesting conversation in the journey. Are there any other like points of contention or any of those statements you want to push out there regards to this?
There's one last somewhat recent example to see if you guys think that this applies, but Omni-Man to Invincible. Like, does this fit into that category? Because I mean,
that's breaking
we
the
don't
cycle,
necessarily. see Omni-Man as a superhero, but
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
in that
ridiculous.
world, he is a superhero. Mark is transitioning into it. Does this apply?
I don't necessarily see him as a successor though. Like they
I
feel
don't
like
either.
two different characters.
Yeah, two different characters.
Like I see Mark coming into his own. Like if we get this to this far into the animation version of it, like when he has his own daughter and how his daughter operates, that would seem more like a successor to him because she's doing things a little bit differently than he did in his heyday. But I mean, maybe as we get, because I don't want to spoil too much, because there's certain parts there in the comics where it would make more sense. But as far as we've seen now in the show, they just are two different people.
Well, I think regardless of how far we get and spoilers and everything, it's still we went into or came into the journey in Invincible following Mark. Usually when you're talking about a successor, is we start off with a character, follow this character all the way through their journey, and then years down the road, it's time for them to pass the mantle on to somebody else. We didn't follow Omni. We weren't watching Omni-Man from like the time he was 20 years old or we first got to Earth. We pretty much just seen the tail end of Omni-Man's journey, very very tail end. Pretty much when he first started was a villain, so to speak. So it's kind of a different scenario. I do agree with the idea, like you said, with Mark with his daughter later on. Once you follow Mark's journey, because I think in the comic books it goes from he's like 18 to I think he's like 35 or something like that. So it's a long
He's
journey.
like a couple hundred. He's old as hell. He's like a couple hundred years old, I think, by the end of the story.
Or even older than that, right? Even older,
Yeah,
or
'cause him
something
and
with Peter
Eve
Parker
don't
and
really
May
age
Parker,
for real.
that kind of thing. So it's kind of a different flavor. I see where you're coming from, because it is a father and a son, but it's not. I don't see it the same way. Now let me ask y'all this, but this is my last thought. Y'all are much bigger fans of the series than I am with Boruto and Naruto. Do you see do you see that as a good handoff with Boruto's journey?
When they are in the manga now, I say yes. I think that's more because again, the same premise of like protect the village and protect the people you care about. Again, they have two different approaches to that, and I mean, well, you could argue with the Naruto thing as far as like accomplishing your dreams, or you could spin that however you want to spin that. But I think the core testament, as far as protecting people you care about, I think he's still abiding by that. Now, how that's going on about it up until this point, I think it's good now. I think at least from what I'm seeing, again, I was more into the manga than I am. I think a lot more people are looking at the current state of the manga in a lot more high regard with the blue vortex stuff going on. But initially, no. But I mean, he grew into it, I guess.
Yeah. So if we're having this conversation, we're just going to pretend the anime doesn't exist. That this didn't happen. Right. We don't speak on anime. Manga wise, yeah, I kind of mirrored Charlie's point there. Like now, sure. Before when Kishimoto wasn't working on it himself, it felt a little bit almost like a completely different story. Now you see the similarities between Boruto and Naruto, and the goals aligning finally and becoming like he wanted to protect the village. Before Boruto, he just wanted to show his dad up. Essentially, he didn't really have a motivation or a hyper goal. He didn't necessarily want to be the Hokage like his dad did. That was Sarada's character that wanted to follow in that footsteps. He just wanted to be strong. He respected Sasuke more than his own dad. Now in the manga, you see him become more appreciative of his father, and also deal with his similar levels of trials and tribulations. Because man, is he going through it right now? Yeah, definitely. But again, at the same time, he feels so. So I guess it's a good transition, because Boruto does feel very different from Naruto in the sense that he is a genius. He is a prodigy. I mean, he's kind of everything that Naruto wasn't, and seeing him
comes from a legacy. He comes from
right. So seeing this new iteration grow into having to deal with like some insurmountable odds and get some real hands, I've come to appreciate now. But it was definitely rocky starting off.
Yeah, I think the core, at least for me, the core thing with the start was just that you have this character Naruto who is so goal driven and determined to accomplish his goals. and then you have this new character who's supposed to carry on this mantle who like really doesn't have a goal, especially any goal that's like altruistic. Like most of the things he had, he just was kind of selfish perception stuff for him and like status. It wasn't really a goal to be great. And I was kind of like maybe that can work because maybe we'll make him more like Sasuke. But even then with Sasuke, like he had a true and tried goal throughout most of the series. It changed in different accounts, but like all the best characters in that show had some sort of like modus operandi for them where they like, okay, I have to do this thing. This thing drives me to be better. Naruto was like, I want to be somewhat strong, because sometimes it would feel like he didn't even really care about being strong in certain occasions. Like in instances, he would want to train or like get trained by Sasuke, and other ones he'd be like, I'm just gonna chill out here and play video games for real. I don't really.
Because I guess the thing is too, the biggest difference is he comes from so much privilege where his dad came from none. So it's, of course, going to be a very different scenario, which I kind of have to acknowledge. It's very different. I mean, it's the same as Gohan and Goku. They come from two very different worlds as well in a lot of ways. So it's one last one I had. One last question, real quick. I know I keep on straight pitching it out. Do you think it kind of works or fits still with All Might and Deku? Because you do still see All Might for the first 3 seasons. He's very much, it's still his story, even though you're following Deku. You see that's a handoff.
I think that's perfect to me, in my opinion. I think that's like the definition of it.
Yeah,
like
I think that's one of the best ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they're very different in their own right, but it is still very much a successor in there. Yeah,
they're not even that different, like personality-wise, or like how they achieve objectives. Like they pretty much do everything damn near the exact same. It's just, again, we didn't like, up until this point, at least, we haven't seen like early All Might to see what his confidence level was like, or like how adequate he was in his abilities or in doing what he wanted to do. But we just saw Deku question himself a lot, his ability to do certain things, but his determination driving him. Yeah, because especially when those recent episodes, like that whole thing of like turning your ideas into reality, that was something that they're like dead set on. Like that's the whole like core testament of All Might and Deku. Is I'm gonna turn my ideal world into a reality.
Yes, yeah, I feel it. And there, when it really, really, really hit for me was when in season 4, when they're fighting Overhaul, and like the millions getting about to get clapped out by Overhaul, essentially, while he's trying to protect the little kid, and then all of a sudden Deku busts through the wall. He doesn't say "I am here," but it's very much the same idea of like him, like All Might's whole, his whole essence was "I'm here, don't worry anymore, I got your back." And Deku literally does that. So kind of like I actually feel the mantle passed on to him officially at that moment. So, anyways.
Well, all right, y'all. This has been because we're just about an hour mark too, so it's just about perfect. This has been another episode of Then and Now Podcast, guys. I know we've been very sporadic in the content and things. There's been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes with all 3 of us, and we've been doing our best to stay somewhat consistent with this. Things will be very much more uniform and I guess streamlined in the future and things going forward as we can kind of put things in their proper places. Most of that's me. Again, I'll take accountability for a lot of that. But yeah, y'all, we appreciate all the support up until this point. All 776 of the subscribers that may be watching this, and to the new people watching this as well. I appreciate you. I know these guys appreciate you. And we'll be back with more content from the Then and Now Podcast. This has been Captain Diesel, Luz V, and Professor E, King of the Comics, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Morning, brothers. You didn't do anything this time, but I just feel like I'm mentioning you.